welcome to another talk by the Architecture Society. So Furii is Japanese neologism, derived from the word free in English. Contexts are reinterpreted to create new boundaries in the studio, blurring the lines between practice and research. Their projects explore ecology and resources, incorporating gender perspectives in diverse contexts through design. The studio's founders have been visiting professors at several universities and have been awarded internationally in competitions. So, you know, we're really going to be learning a lot today. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to today's speakers who will like to introduce themselves and share their ideas.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful introduction and for the invitation. We are very happy to be here. As we said before, you have to excuse us our very strong Spanish accent, but I hope that we are understandable enough so you can make a lot of questions afterwards. And what we are going to show you today is a glimpse to our practice. Actually, yeah, we were saying before that is just like opening our computers and showing everything that we do, so you can understand somehow this intertwining between teaching, researching, practicing in architecture that we usually do. Yeah, I think that, no, Diego, I think that we can start.
Let's start.
Sharing the presentation and talking with drawings.
Okay. Can you see our screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's all good.
Okay, so yes, I think Noemí explained it perfectly. The title of the lecture is called More Than Building, and somehow our intention is to show that our personal approach to architecture, and also how this is somehow our aim, but also belongs to a bigger context. And somehow that's when we started to think that, no, in our school, no, and that most of you are now in school days, you are very much focused in building, and somehow through our years in school and after school, we somehow diversify our interest and got more interested into other things, and also in the network of the practice and also of building. So maybe we can start. Maybe the structure of the lecture, we will start with some showing some designs of ours in competitions and also in art biennials, and then we will briefly touch our research interests, and finally some of our examples of the classes in university.
And then you will see how is everything related, actually.
Sorry.
Next one. Yeah, so like in practicing, like first we will see Europan competition projects, and then the collaboration with Atelier Bauau, that maybe you are familiar with them, I'm sure. And starting from the first Europan that we did in already 2017, it was called Common Ground. And like somehow the brief of this competition, or what they asked, is it was located in Madrid, and they were asking for rethinking the underground parkings that were below 6 squares in the city center of Madrid. And then through research, we realized that there were not only these 6, but there were much more underground parkings, potentially transformable, through understanding the typology of the parking. So what if we stop to really understand this as a typology and change from car to care, from car-oriented or Fordist-oriented model to more inclusive city and more accessible, no? So somehow this was the premise, and this is already the project, but as you can see, part of the project is to go through this research of really dissecting the typology, no?
Yes, this is a very special competition that has been going on from 30 years, in which really you can apply research into the actual final project. And also it's like an open-ended competition. So in this case, we examine the parking, no? Its anatomy, and we propose these operations of subtraction, no? Because we were somehow operating with the underground. And but in our kind of aim, it was to see this as a tool for negotiation, no? Because we knew in that moment that even though if we win the competition, we will need to discuss with many people how to approach this somehow radical approach to architecture, which was somehow stripping these parkings.
These are from Gómez, showing how you show interiors and stuff like that.
Hello. No, yes.
The architecture,
There's
like a style in it.
but no problem. Yes, and I think that, as you can see here, also like was not only understanding the typology of the parking itself, but also understanding the urban fabric. And we really wrote the strategy into these are in green. You can see the 6 squares that we will going to intervene. And all of these are operations of mobility and understanding also the inclusive fabric of the city and how to renaturalize a city center that it was much thought for cars or for tourism and not so much for the neighbors or for the daily life in Madrid, no? So how can we reverse this and use these squares as really as catalyzers of this common living? So then we went to each of the squares specifically to as case studies.
Yes, in this case, I think we won't get into each of them particularly, but I think it was important that in this moment we were starting, Noemí was starting her PhD thesis. We were in Tokyo at this moment. We studied in Madrid, but we were in Tokyo at this moment, and somehow we were applying the research of somehow gender studies in urbanism into a competition. Even though the actual project was to create these public infrastructures in the city center. Sorry, in this kind of parkings, that we are going to see in this one. The type of operations that we did, we identified what was underground, and then we started to apply this kind of operations of instead of building, in this case it was unbuilding, the subtracting facades and concrete walls and concrete slabs in order to make this car building into a citizen building. But somehow all these scales, from the really detail of how to intervene these structures to the urban fabric to somehow more theories of what we were researching in the moment, we were starting to collide, and we were starting to mix them in this competition. Here, well, we were talking about thermodynamics, how this can be sustainable, but we were more interested, apart from, of course, energetic or environmental sustainability, we were also very interested in social sustainability, because in these squares, despite being in the city center, were almost empty during the day, and 50 meters away from it, they were like extremely lively public spaces. So we also thought, how can we start to think about the network of actors inside that somehow also contain a building? So which institutional actors, which parts could be somehow rented or could be somehow metabolizing inside this structure, and so then there was the next layer of also thinking about beyond just architecture as we thought in the school, but also how this space could be managed, as a commons.
Yes, and of course it's very much inspired in Lacaton and Basal way of thinking, of really reusing what is already there. So in this case, we were really understanding the underground parking space as a spatial resource for the city, and like changing like the paradigm of mobility during this shift and changing the perspective, we could really recover or reuse and not having to build everything new, right? So there are already many things in the city that we don't have to start from zero, but just to put another perspective on it and to give a new light in order to propose new spaces.
Yes.
No?
And this is coming back to this idea of open-endedness, it was not a common competition of just, okay, you will do this library, and if you win, it will be like that. We knew that in this competition we will have to engage in a process of negotiation. So even though the project that we just saw it was centered in one of the squares, no, more deeply. In the end, we ended up by discussing with the town hall and with the actors involved, focusing in one of no, in another of the squares, no, but always having these strategies that we were doing in the beginning. In this square, actually, there is no a square at all. It's like the building that we see on the right is a public market, which is extremely lively, but is very much abandoned.
Very introspective.
Very introspective, and keep in mind that this is like 50 meters from the most kind of commercial strip of Madrid, and is completely abandoned, and is surrounded by this kind of mess of crazy parking space, loading, unloading, and not much public space at all, but it's called a square somehow.
Abandon the public space, not the market.
No, the market inside is great, and well, these were some kind of historical analysis and of the life that has been there, which has been, I think, 500 years, always some kind of commercial activity in that specific surface, no, and now it's like this, no, which is totally. It smells weird. It's like a very lively space, but also like very.
Yeah, it has been neglected from many years. So of course, with all the ghosts and all the wanting to speculate and really gentrify this area, so we could feel that on purpose somehow this space was not taken care at all. Actually was one of the most lively spaces inside the building itself, no? So here, for example, you see another analysis, more urban in relation with the building, of what are like the potentialities or the latencies that this urban fabric holds and how we can improve them, no? So the next step, as we proposed in the Europan competition, was to really negotiate and to really discuss and to really establish a dialogue with the people that actually use this space, that are like the merchants that are working there every day and know very much about this area, no? And then with them also talking about things that when you realize, no, like that from the competition to really the implementation, all the complexities, and for example, how to discuss logistics. Logistics was like very important for this project, because how to load and unload all the food, all the things that they need in the market to function, really condition what kind of public plaza we could release or we could afford in this urban setting, no? So we propose many options to also, with our expertise, dialogue together with them and negotiate what was the best for the city and for the users, no?
Yes, I think in this point it was very important, this kind of participation of other actors, which are not actually this step we did, but it was not something that was asked or whatever. So we kind of jump outside of what was supposed to do, and this also we also jump in time, because the problem for us is that we wanted also to intervene in the underground parking, which is a public infrastructure, but somehow is rented to a private company that is exploiting these days the building. So we could not access it, we could not change it, but we somehow also propose a plan for the future. No, this probably, we don't know if it will get made, but somehow by attacking this not so long future, we all the time somehow go beyond what is supposed to be our task. No, in this case, we were trying to reduce traffic lights and somehow recycle all the urban furniture that populates the cities, but that are directed to cars and not to people, and somehow integrate them in our design. No? But this kind of catalogs and this open-endedness of things, no, more than one solution, also help us to discuss, no, and not to get rejected or to fall very much into no, this is my design and it's supposed to be like this and so on. No, because in the end we are dealing with many actors, no? And this drawing, it was important for us because our project actually is only the public space, so let's say street level. But here we started to intervene also in the in the market itself, no, in its rooftop, also, I don't know, we imagine like there was some projections towards the neighbor buildings, which are cinemas, and then it's like no neighbors. We were also occupying some other parts of the street, and by doing this and showing, no, on the left somehow how we were changing the public space, and on the right how we also imagine that the rooftop will activate. No, these are other activities, but also the imagination. No, like this, for example, this stair that we changed into because we had to for accessibility reasons. Somehow we created this view of the top of this building, which is public infrastructure, but it's also very much abandoned. And by this, the market itself, the merchants that are there got very much interested and very excited, and they made them theirs. No, maybe we can continue. This is the next edition of the Europan. It's every 2 years, and in this case we were applying. It was another part of Madrid. We always apply in Madrid. In this case,
it's an obsession.
It's similar process. In this case, we didn't win. We came second, no, the special mention. But same idea of what we were going in that moment, which was my doctoral thesis that was about urban forestry, and we were applying or seeing how we could implement these ideas into in this case, the opposite of the other project, no? Which it was like a plot that was given in the totally outskirts of the city, which they built a hospital there, and is kind of surrounded by only highways and crazy things. But in this case, we also started to think how maybe we could think about the production of trees as an industry, and investigating the typologies of greenhouses, and how these greenhouses have energetic conditions that could be hybridized with also other uses, for example, housing. No? And then we started to learn also from the fabric that was around, and well, in the end, creating this kind of hybrid between. Also, in any case, this goes totally against of what probably will get built and what has been built in Spain for 20 years, and now it's we have many places similar to this one, which is just huge avenues and roundabouts, but nothing. No, so somehow it's urbanized, but without people, because through the speculation process that burst around 2010. So somehow it was kind of this level of merging these things. No, this is the next Europan.
Yeah, that you can see a continuation in time, that the topics of recycling or reusing or understanding with a new vision, like what is already there, to really enhance certain capacities of the city, is what is like the common thread of all of these projects, and of course also Madrid. And in this last Europan competition, again, this competition always raises like very interesting questions. And this time was how to think about urban farming in Madrid, in the city. So first of all, we start thinking about what urban farming means and how can be more than farming. With this, I mean that, of course, like we all know the globalized system that we have, and that what kind of like environmental problems this can entail, and also how these urban farming practices can arise as an alternative practices to really grow local food, and also engage with other agents in the city, but not only human, but also non-human, and also to go beyond that of growing itself, no? To imply also more than farming in terms of eating, processing, cooking, and also metabolizing things, no? So we wanted to expand a little bit like the notion of farming, because we thought that has more possibilities for the city, and also for the proposal that we could do, no? So in this case, also Europan was proposing some plots. They already have a plan that is called productive neighborhoods, no? Barrios productores, that they are already identifying some empty plots in the city with potentially transformable into urban farming plots, no? And they were proposing to the competition 5 very different plots, and they were asking us to select one or several and give a solution for urban farming. So in this case, we selected the 3 of them that were very close together in the neighborhood scale, because somehow we understood that the environmental unit should be the neighborhood, not a single plot, because as Diego was commenting before, we were understanding like this urban farming more in terms of networks, no? Also here, like what are like the really like the actor network system that can be implemented here. And these are the 3 plots that with very, very different characteristics already. One is in between blocks, another one is in the periphery of this suburban area, and another one is very close to a road, no? So again, very different plots. But again, looking at the neighborhood, we could expand more typologies that could be potentially transformable into more than farming, no? So we were just trying to awake this imagination on the city and really to change again the paradigm of the typical suburban town that depends on the center for absolutely everything, no? So here in this next phase of the urban system, we were linking with already green and the metropolitan forest, that as you can see is very related with the previous project also, and also understanding all the fabric that is related to food and to care in order to introduce together with the urban farming system. I don't know if I'm forgetting something.
No, I think you're doing great. I think what is important here is that they ask us for, in reality, the very specific plots and how to solve if the corner got sun, or if how are we going to build a greenhouse or something like that. And in the end, we went back and showed this scale, which we thought it was important to show that each of these projects belong to a bigger network of things, and somehow also if we put the glasses of this urban more than farming, then we can see that every bar, every bakery, everything could belong to this. That is already there could belong to this. No, so there's a lot of urban farming that we were not seeing. And again, we also thought about urban strategies for mobility, for also public infrastructures, public spaces, in order to make this also safe, somehow super blocks that will activate this somehow degraded area of the periphery of Madrid. And I think following this, similar to what things that we have seen, we proposed this M frame, which is called the M of Madrid, that it was somehow one of these strategies in order to occupy the plots that they gave us, no? And then it was somehow modular, and we could adapt to many somehow scales from mini, midi, maxi. We make this kind of word plays, but in any case, for us, it was important as a imaginary, to show this imaginary of what we were supposed to do with what was more dealing with this kind of grow, so in terms of different scales, but fences where things could be separated, some places for storing, but then we were expanding, and saying, but we need to think more beyond that. We need to think of a structure for distributing, a structure for storing, a structure for cooking and celebrating, the food, and this kind of very collective meaning of eating that it was missing in this area, and also in the concept of urban farming.
Yes, going a little bit beyond what is productive and also thinking what is reproductive, how we can think in cycles more like that, just creating surplus,
Yeah, these are some of these elements that, as you can see, we thought of these things similar to other of the similar process to other Europan, other competition, and yes, also thinking of how even compost these things, how to deal with the residue of the city. And these are 3 scenarios of 3 of the places that they gave us, in which we were slowly doing different operations that went beyond just cultivating areas, no? And then we started to think which are the actors that were surrounding. We had, for example, some empty and very well orientated and with sunlight and wind place that we could dry food, for example. We could create some playgrounds for this space in between buildings, which is free of cars and is very much safe, incorporating the school, you know, the elementary school that is next to it. And well, here there was the other scenario, no, next to the street, and in this case we were proposing how to make businesses, no, in this taking into advantage this situation of the visibility, how to make business somehow related in this area. There could be, you know, some greenhouses, some bars, but somehow we were in any case, no, we were using all these strategies that we showed in the beginning. Then when we arrived to these solutions that are completely open-ended, no, and are an open discussion that we are having these days with the town hall, it made sense. No, it was not something that just came from above, but it was something that slowly was, no, cooking until we arrived here. And this is just the last one that we have, which was this open area next to another highway, so another kind of very much residue of the urbanization of the periphery of Madrid. But somehow we were here imagining how the neighbors, no, were starting to also get into this farming, no, and collaborating with the local chain of supermarket, no, like very Mercadona, which is kind of something very unimaginable, no, and selling inside, no, these things, no. So we know that maybe these scenarios are not fully possible, no. This is our ideal future, but somehow, no, we could see that either if we jump one or two steps or one or two elements, we still could make this urban farming or modern farming possible. Well, this is okay. Maybe.
Yeah, and maybe next, very briefly, like to the next step of our practice, that is of course very related also with our research, because we were in Tokyo researching in the laboratory of Yoshiharu Tsukamoto, that is one of the members of Atelier Baguao, together with Momoyo Kajima. And then this allows us also to practice from the lab in another way, and also like as a studio. So this hybrid format was very useful for us as young architects. And one of the first projects that we did together with Tsukamoto was this Fire Foodies Club, that again was to combine, and this is you can see the relation with the previous project. It was to combine the recycling the biomass, the debris that was in the city that came from the maintenance of city trees, together with cooking activities that was already happening in Shenzhen, that was in China, where the biennial was happening, no? This was 2017-18. And then we proposed this pavilion that somehow could catalyze all these activities and this cooking together, reusing this biomass, no? But very ironically, just some weeks before the Biennale opened, they announced that we were not able to do barbecue. So these big chimneys, actually the purpose of these big chimneys was to do like an open fire and open barbecue, but they tell that the city was so polluted that could not even burn a single branch of a tree anymore, no? So then this pavilion became like a monument of like the contradictions of the city itself, that sometimes like you cannot even do like a barbecue in public space, but you are surrounded again by highways and very contaminated mobility system, no? So fortunately, like the pavilion was very successful, because as it was very open structure, it allowed for kind of like sheltering unexpected behaviors also. So it had water, it had seating, it had shade, and it was like a perfect place for performance. So all of these activities that you can see here happened during the days of the biennial, and it is still there, no? And then the next pavilion, that is also very related with the previous projects, as you can see.
Yes, it was 2 years later, but the place has changed. So in this moment, it was in the city center, somehow financial district, and this very beautiful subtropical park, which it was totally disconnected from the city, and somehow the biennial was happening in that train station, but our project was inside this park. No? And then we were starting to think beyond this, together with the urban forestry that we were kind of identifying as an interesting practice as well going in the city, but going beyond this burning behavior, which somehow stopped us because of the bigger network of the global climate change. So together with the workers, we somehow made this building, which was kind of very much a diagrammatic building, where all the resources from the forest were coming and were transforming slowly, from the big trees that come with typhoons into logs, into then some processes of cutting, making timber, making a workshop of furniture with the timber, also chopping and making this kind of barbecue again, transforming the waste into compost and into then producing again small trees in a sort of a greenhouse, in this project. But in this case, this project was not built because also was the moment where China and Hong Kong were having kind of political issues. So in this case, the government canceled half of the interventions that were going to happen in the city. So somehow it stayed like this, And this was somehow together like Europan here, since having this kind of 2 separate pavilions, 2 years later, we could also start to see and to learn from one project to the next one. In the first one, we really thought we were trying to create this human commons, but we created this linear narrative that in the moment that was cut because of a bigger network, then it lost its meaning. And in this one, we tried to create more, creating more circular, incorporating different resources, incorporating different processes, and then somehow it was stronger, and also not thinking about humans in this case, but also incorporating the forest as an active agent. And this is the final project that we did together, which was this past year. It was reflecting about the uselessness and somehow the production of things that come together with, in this case, that we are experimenting with COVID, all these kind of new, plastics that surround us, and that and new kind of designs that are appearing, and how these kind of moments of change eventually disappear, and with it a lot of waste, but some things remain. And in this case, we were interested in rethinking how to eat together in a COVID situation. So we also studied historically how this changed, from eating together around a fire, from somehow. So there are actually many typologies depending on the culture, depending on the time, but somehow for a meal of 12, or something like that, it was we had all these typologies. And then after COVID, then we had 2 solutions: either spread a lot, or having this kind of plastics surround us. So we proposed this table on the right, this huge table that was socially separating everyone, but still together in the same surface. And then also through the table was coming the sound of birds that we could finally listen in the city, because somehow everyone was staying home, and the nature was collaborating. So this kind of collaboration of more than human was happening in this huge table. That also during this season in Guangzhou, in China, in Times Museum, a building designed by Koolhaas, but also this kind of weird building also fit with our weird table, and in the end, many other activities, not just this kind of socially distanced feast, took happen, and this was appropriated by a company of theater that made this thing. Okay.
Yes, no, just like just before jumping into the research, as you can see, like in this framework of the art biennale or the museum, we could test already a lot of, through pavilions or through art installations, many of the research or many of the projects that we were practicing or putting forward, no? And then now that this is going to be super brief, because if not, we can be here forever, I think, and maybe you're already tired. So I think that we will pass through research and teaching with some key examples, but so you can do like somehow like the link between what you just saw and also what we were researching in our thesis, no? And how we try to apply all the time what we are researching more academically or more theoretically into applied projects, no? So first, in the section of environment, you will see here, like Diego will explain, how it's very obvious with the previous pavilions, no?
Yes, this is a situation that happens in Tokyo every year with typhoons, and that somehow was very shocking for us coming from Madrid, which of course we have trees, but this kind of landscape of real forestry, dealing with these huge trees that were falling because of this very strong phenomenon, for us was very, very important. And then we started to dig into these practices that were happening in this crazy city. You know, when you think of Tokyo, maybe you don't think of this. And then we got started interested in what is this practice, which kind of practices around the world are dealing with this urban forestry, in the sense of dealing with the resources that come out of it, and also with the actors that can be together with it. No? So in this, for example, we were mapping, we were diagramming in this case a network of an architect that is also an urban forester in Tokyo, and that every time that a tree falls, somehow gathers a community and makes a workshop, and everybody somehow takes care of that tree and turns it into furniture and so on, and somehow has a business side, but also like a NGO, no? Side was very much interesting for us. And also thinking how really in the urban environment, in the built environment, we have made these empty spaces for trees and for the forest, no, in the city, and somehow it's only accessible by workers, no. We are somehow in a very passive manner, but somehow in Tokyo, by researching its parks, very much doing field work, we could start to see some repeated elements that allow for this interaction between humans, non-humans, and also with resources. No, so here you will see similar things that we have seen before. No, this focusing in elements, and somehow how these elements together with the landscape and with the network make these kind of assemblages that can go beyond, no, the human commons and also the environment. No? So here some I don't know, devices, this kind of crazy mountains of logs that were happening in the middle of the parks in Tokyo.
Is maintenance, is not
yes,
productive forestry in the sense of conventional industry.
And it's a care practice, no? But somehow some of these areas, for example, these logs that were left there in order to like actively enhance life of certain insects or certain mushrooms. So there were these practices that were somehow happening unnoticed, or these tree nurseries that people were playing, no, around this kind of very much production of city trees inside these parks. No? So, and some places that were kind of remain only for, no, without human access, only for birds and for insects and for non-humans. And okay, in this case, we did this kind of very much detailed research of the Tokyo Metropolitan Parks. Well, this, I think, similar to this, we were kind of trying to incorporate all these ideas into the city, you know, and maybe next.
Yes, no, like, and the ones that Diego just saw, you can see how the Europan competitions are really applying what we were seeing in Tokyo in the Madrid context, no? And this was also the gender part is my doctoral thesis that was focusing a gender perspective on the contemporary architecture in Japan. And here you can see a drawing by Kon Wajiro that I'm sure that many of you know, that started to illustrate what a woman needs and what a man wants, no? But somehow through this ethnographical drawing, we can understand like the ecology of things that are related with one's body, no? and what kind of social constructs and social implications and architectural material implications this has, no? So the first part of the thesis, I was researching the Japanese house, identifying 3 gender charged spaces that had like this kind of gender construct implications, like the kitchen that as a place of woman's work, the master bedroom as the marital space of the couple, and the study room that was used to, has like a very powerful meaning of the man's quarters, no? So how, my question is how the contemporary Japanese house, especially the works by contemporary architects, challenge these assumptions and these preconceptions of this, especially in the 50s and in the post-war period when, with the high economic growth, and there was created through women's magazines these kind of images, no? Here the dining kitchen, for example, something that is super common today and is nothing rare, was an innovation at that moment, no? And here Miho Hamaguchi was one of the pioneers and one of the first female architects in Japan to vindicate this. But we can trace the genealogy until Kazuyo Sejima, that you can see there in the project that she did for Toyo Ito, a Tokyo nomad woman, of this kind of more dissolution of the house itself, no? But it's interesting that this project was originally an exhibition for the Seibu department store, and the question of the theme was actually, what is a kitchen? And this is the result, no? So how, by going beyond and challenging this notion, they were really performing like very different type of houses. So this exhibition that was curated by Tsukamoto Sensei, Professor Tsukamoto, was a huge inspiration for the research. And here there was like it's a great book where many Japanese houses are somehow organized in genealogies. But for me it was very interesting this gender perspective on the Japanese house, no? And to understand somehow what were like the strategies for challenging this domesticity, no? And how these houses start to behave and to celebrate cooking, to recognize labor inside the house, to open up the knowledge for all residents. So this somehow going beyond the stereotype of the minimal white nice house in Japan, and see what how space is really performing. Here, like the research, last month we were researching more specifically in the change of the kitchen of the Daidokoro. Here you can see the Sky House, and also here Azuma and Tower House, and here Toyo Ito. Yeah, I could talk 1 hour of each of these houses, but, but I think that I have to go. And then if you have any question, you can ask later. And then like the other part, very important of the research, was to understand this behavior also, not only in the houses, but in the urban fabric. So for this, I selected a very special neighborhood that is called Yugaoka, that maybe many of you, if you been in Tokyo or you live there, maybe you know this neighborhood that is very well known for many shops. It's very nice neighborhood, and I was very interested in it because I could see like a kind of public space that I couldn't see in other parts of Tokyo, and I was wondering if I apply the gender perspective to this place, what happened, no? So starting digging the historical context of Yugaoka, it was a suburban area in Tokyo in post-war, and then we can see these very images of the domestic life versus the salaryman or the salary workers in the train, and the gender division is very clear, no, in these post-war years. But through the magazines we were researching, and this research I was doing together with lab members, and in particularly Yoko Kihara helped me a lot researching about the magazines and seeing really like how the city was changed through this image of the projection of women in society, no? So we went through all the contents of Yugaoka in terms of shops, and how this was changed and was gender charged as a very male-oriented or very female-oriented businesses, no? So we started to study historically the changes of the city and how the Yugaoka was performing in terms of gender. And here you have like some examples of very interesting typologies that only happen there, no? Like the cooking school that started as a cooking school for housewives in the 50s and is still there today, and the building, of course, metabolized, no? Or for example, this building that was like a boutique store for idols that used to go there, and you could see like your favorite idol selling customized clothes, no? Like Seiko is a very famous idol singer of the 80s in Japan. Latest, like the Kuhombutsu Street, that is a very rare public space that also happened only in this place in Yugaoka, with a lot of benches that if someone visited Tokyo knows that it's very rare to find a bench, no? So actually this complex phenomena of this genderification resulted in a very accessible inclusive public space that maybe we can discuss later, no? Yes, just briefly, like to give 2 examples of how to apply this into our teaching practice, all of this that you've seen, because I think that we don't have much time.
It's just to, for example, in this case, we, as we said, we also teach, and we try to, in this case, it was a workshop about urban forestry in the city of Nagoya, and somehow try to expand our what we do actually is throughout what we research, but also learn a lot, no, from the process that opening this our practice to other members and other actors, somehow how it also reflects on us, no, and how we learn from it. And this is another, no, this one, Noemí led this studio.
Yeah, it's very related with the research on urban that I just explained about Yugaoka, no? How the city many times perform in this binary way, no? Where there are like very clear productive centers and residential areas that is where the productive fabric happens and creates these binaries in the city. And then we were also identifying one more binary created by the COVID-19 pandemic, that was like the difference between the essential or non-essential work, no? So this surplus work. So we were also like, again, in the studio, researching all of these typologies that had to be physical work, no? And what are like the spaces that actually, and the ecology of things that are embedded in these spaces, no? So for example, like the very clear example of care and elderly care, or also like the care of children in the city that usually happens, if it is in the city center of Tokyo, happens under the railway, in contrast with the suburbs, but that have like greater outside areas, and also like the change of the home skills and the homemaking through history, and also bars, no? Like izakaya. And then how to explain.
We propose a new logistics system using
and then like how apply all of these into a project, no? So this video that you are seeing like is by the students. In this video, they somehow go from the research to the application to give a new vision for the city, no? In this case was like the how to challenge the logistic system in the city to really propose intertwine between to facilitate how to provide the luggage and the package system in an easier manner by hybridizing with the train system, no? So how to care about this suburban fabric in a more local way or in a more accessible way. Do you want to add something?
No, yes, just to somehow to reflect on this, no, which in this case, no, it's somehow made by someone else than us, no, but through this discussion, this research, this teaching, it's somehow how when we learn, and somehow when we go beyond architecture or what we were taught, and when we expand our network and really feedback and this is kind of the purpose of what we do.
Yes, and for us, like somehow this practicing, researching, and teaching is really like as a unit and is very much intertwined. I think that is maybe a thing of young architects that out of necessity and out of care also we are practicing in this way, no? So I hope that it helped you to get inspired or to have many questions, or maybe it was a lot of information with a strong Spanish accent and very fast and many images, but I hope that you can engage in conversation and have some question and ask us whatever you want. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much for it. It was amazing. And you guys now are invited to ask your question. It's a huge opportunity, so please use it. I think it's a thing to do. All right, so if anyone has any questions, please.
Or if you want to type it out in the chat, we're more than happy to read it out for you, answered. Or if you want to put your video and microphone on, that would also be wonderful.
That's
great.
Because if not, it's very lonely here. It's like talking with your, like, is someone there? You're not very sure. If you're talking with a computer, like, maybe. I see Alexander now.
Hello guys. It was a great pleasure. I'm the chair of the Architecture Society, so that was our kind of goal to invite you, especially the young practices, because we've been just texting each other that was something amazing in terms of that such a small practice for now. I bet for now this needs to be highlighted. Got better ideas than these big offices very often, and that's something wonderful to see. And I wanted to mention the first thing that was the most interesting and visually pleasant presentation that we've ever had.
Thank you so much.
That needs to be said. It was beautiful. It was moving architecture, moving presentation, and that was really just nice to watch. And
I was just saying that it's the next level of a presentation for a project, and we have a lot to learn from you. So it was absolutely inspiring, and this is what we were aiming to have an inspiration from someone like you.
Thank you so much.
This is very encouraging because many times you need this kind of as the Japanese say, gambarimasu, like let's do it as best as we can, because it's true that all of this, and you are young architects and you are starting your practice. We are a little bit older, but I want to believe that I'm young also. But
that was wonderful.
Sometimes can be very also very frustrating because maybe the economical resources or the projects that you think very idealistically then don't come the way that you want, or you want to control everything. And for example, in projects such as the Europan ones, we are learning so much to release, actually, to know that it's not like a student project anymore, that you have to really negotiate with different actors in the city, and that there is one point and that you release the project in the city council, and then let's see. Because for example, like the first one that we explained about the square, it will be built this year, but it's not depending on us anymore. So I think that being able to release, that for me is being hard. So
this element of improvisation over there.
Yeah, or like to just acknowledge that they are going to, like as Diego was talking all the time about actors, agents, other agents is engaging, is real. It's real. Other agents will come, and then architects are just one more. It's not more important, or it's just like very horizontal. And I think sometimes in the school it's great to have this idea of the super architect, but I think it's a figure that is not working anymore. At least here in Spain.
Yes.
And I think that it's good news, you know, like it's good news for architecture and for the city.
No, definitely, I agree. I think coming, you know, from these arrogant modernist architects to very pleasant, kind people as you are, that's something that's this is the direction that we should go for. I think, and you highlighted this a lot. So.
And I wanted to mention the energy you're talking about your work, and you're so into it, and we just can see how much are you just putting there. It's all about you. So,
You got a good teamwork as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's
we work
amazing.
also with Yoko these days. Yoko, I think that she's there. I'm reading Yoko, and I think it's her.
Hi, Yoko.
I don't know, maybe she's like it, but Yoko was very important from the beginning in this lab environment of Tokyo, and this collaboration between different generations and different students of different levels, from PhD to master to bachelor, and to create these synergies was so important and so inspiring. And now Yoko is with us here in Madrid because with a scholarship from Japan, so it's doing the opposite way. So this has changed. And yeah, for now it's only the three of us, the team, no? So we are super small.
Yes.
So you're just three.
Yes.
So, but I mean, let's keep in mind we maybe it's not like a good lecture in the sense that we show a lot, and then it's not something that we have done yesterday or this year. No, it's somehow very long. But
we can imagine.
our aim, it was for you to see, or for students to see, that everything is somehow a process, and every step of the way that we have taken, it has not always been the most successful or the most somehow focused or whatever, but every step you learn, and then you keep adding to that, and also if you diversify, and then because the thing of this is that there is a hidden, very dark context, which is kind of architecture, at least in Spain. We started studying when there was kind of the boom of the economy, and we were building everything, every opera house in every town of 10,000 people, no? And then somehow we ended architecture when all of these extreme
we graduated.
Crazy ideas shattered, no, in our face, and which it's for good. But the problem, it meant that then we realized that architecture is bigger than buildings. No, it's bigger than just having your own signature in whatever town and whatever magazine. No, but the problem in this case is that then it meant it was no job for anyone. No, so in this moment, then that's when we started, no, to diversify and to see if we, of course, through this precarity that we were living, how could we make a living and somehow care about what we did and make meaningful things, or to us and what we considered to also to society. And was through this kind of, we got the scholarship to study in Japan, no? So that somehow our support.
Someone is asking about Japan also.
And then, yes, Attila was asking that he wants to work in Japan, no, in the future, and how would I find a job, and what is the level of Japanese knowledge that is required? In our case, we didn't know Japanese, and we know I know hardly any Japanese, because I think Noemí knows a little bit more. But so in that sense, it's okay. But also we came from the precarious place where there was no work for anybody, and we went to a place where there is work, but there's only work. No, if you start to work in an office, it's many people, it's very easy to get somehow working totally for free, no, and getting, of course, a very valuable kind of education through it, no, to experience this, and you will work a lot and learn a lot, but also you have to think what it means for the rest of your community, no, if you start to work for free for other people, and generating this dynamic because everyone wants to, learn from Ishigami, no, but nobody is not an open place, no, you need to have somehow resources to be able to live abroad and paying everything and also exploiting
But
yourself.
Attila is asking for a job, which means
Yes,
that should
that's
be
good.
paid.
That's good. So, for example, I think in our case, we had a scholarship supported by the government of Japan. So in that case, we could collaborate and we
We were
things.
very lucky. We were very lucky because, for example, Attila, if you're interested in Japan, I really recommend you to apply to this next scholarship by the Ministry of Education and Science. And if you present your research project, it's once every year. They have it in, I think, every country. I guess like they are like I don't know where you will apply, but I think that this is a very great opportunity to then enter like a Japanese lab. And in our case, we were very lucky to enter like Tsukamoto lab, that is Atelier Bow Wow lab. And then it's true that the practice of Atelier Bow Wow and the lab is very, very blended. So you can see the type of drawings and the type of research that comes that is very, very influenced, and it creates a lot of relation. But of course, we were privileged enough to receive this scholarship. Without this, that was like a salary, we could not engage in this amount of work in this manner with that kind of freedom, no? So I think that is very necessary to recognize us like the privilege of being lucky and then get the scholarship and being able to go to Japan, no?
Yes.
So
And how the perspective has changed in Japan?
Sorry?
How's your perspective about architecture has changed in Japan?
Yes.
Going from Spain to different continent there, basically.
Of course, yes, because I guess our view from Spain, we had like a very much somehow love and interest of Japan and Japan architecture, but then going there, it's much more, no? I think and the work they do is extreme in many ways, but also with care. I think it's always a way of trying to do things right. And also I think since, at least in our lab, since we were kind of engaged also in research and in design, then we realized how big some small projects were, no? And how, again, no, we came from the flashy Spain architecture from the late or early 2000s that was exposed in MoMA, and we were going to the flashy, thin, white architecture of Japan, no? But then something had changed also, no? After the global crisis, but also after what happened in Fukushima, and so we learned a lot, and of course we changed our perspective for good, no? Like, maybe it was my gift. I think Noemí also.
Yes. Colin said to your work is really amazing. I wanted to ask, how do you try to overcome art creative block when faced with it?
Good question. I don't know. We shout a lot. We discuss a lot. It's true that for us, I think you will find your way. I think maybe it's not a good answer, but just keep trying, and eventually you will do. And also do what you like. That's or what you love, which is better than like, no? Which is, I think it's what, for example, in our case, we like drawings.
A lot, as you can see.
And the good thing about drawing is like you can do it by yourself somehow. So you don't need a client, or just like so it's a way for us to express what we're doing, and also we like writing as well, no? It's something that you can do by yourself, no? And that you don't need but
contractor.
But also we like also collaborating, and that's like, I think whatever you like in your work or in your process of working, keep doing it. And even though it's maybe you will need to learn other things and things that maybe you don't like so much, keep doing what you love, and I think you will.
And I think I like valuing each stage of architecture, like this more than building, no? Like somehow like the goal, no, of the 20th century is like build. And now like new narratives and new way of approach is like just questioning, no? Like maybe maybe there are other ways, or I think that maybe we all agree in this, that architecture is far beyond only building, no? Like a drawing or creating a narrative through architectural drawings is also architecture, no? Writing about architecture is also architecture. Teaching or pedagogy is also architecture, no? So this more than building that we wanted to explain to you in a this very messy and and tense way.
To me, you did a great job.
Is somehow this, no? Wow, thank you so much. We have to do this again because this is very good for my ego and most satisfying presentation we've seen.
That's the best thing I've heard right now. The best feedback.
How to animate with After Effects?
Yes. So our in a way somehow recycling, no, making compost of things, no, and then since we had these drawings that we usually do in this kind of either Rhino or whatever, no, then it goes through Illustrator usually. Then the next step for us, sometimes when we needed to communicate our projects